Turning Traffic into Gold, Volume 1. Ingenious Ways to Turn Prospects into Customers. Chapter 1. Slip into the Groove. People are creatures of habit, and that knowledge can be used to convert visitors into customers. If you pay close attention to when people are triggered to open their wallets, then you can use the same dynamics to develop a strategy to have it work for your sales efforts. Understanding triggers that produce sales is one effective way to develop strategies that can work over a large cross-section of people. In each chapter, we will discuss a variety of different techniques to mine your traffic for sales, explaining what works, the psychological impact of the strategy, and even how to implement for the best timing and results. The first strategy we will discuss exploits people's tendencies to develop habits and uses that to create sales that get bigger and bigger as they become more involved with you. Strategy. For a habit to work for you, it has to produce the close of a sales call to action. For instance, if you've ever been to the deli, you'll see how this strategy works to make additional sales. You go and you order 1/2 pound of lunch meat. It doesn't matter which. Odds are that they will cut up more than you need, nevertheless, and then when they weigh it, they'll ask, "Is that okay, or do you want me to take some off?" Since you already committed to the order of 1/2 pound of lunch meat, you'll seem cheap trying to get out of the extra, so most of the time you let it go and pay for the extra. Not only that, but when they hand you the lunch meat, they ask, "Is there anything else I can get for you?" And since you've already purchased one item, you are more inclined to purchase another. This strategy works because you already committed to a purchase, no matter how small, and asking for something on top is taking advantage of the groove you've already slipped into. It may not seem like a lot of extra money going in your pocket, but if you do this to every single sales prospect you encounter, the multiple effect can line your pockets quite nicely. This strategy works okay with retail sales, but it is dynamite with direct sales on the internet. The key is to get your visitor to commit to a small sale first, and then, before they check out, ask them if they want something extra. You will be surprised how fast your orders tend to grow after that. The psychology. The biggest resistance people tend to have when closing a sale is just the simple act of saying yes. Once that obstacle is circumvented, it becomes much easier to make the sales larger out of pure inertia. Once people are already walking in a specific direction, it takes more effort and attention to change directions than it does to just keep going the way you're already headed. Some people like to call it consistency in action, but it's also about habitual action. Psychologists say that it only takes so much time to create a habit, but it can take more than 21 days to break it, and it takes concerted effort to do so. People generally don't pay attention to their habits, and that's why when you identify a trigger, it is easy to exploit it to your benefit. You are actually setting the course without making it obvious to your sales prospect. The minute they agree to even a tiny purchase, you have set the momentum to generate even larger sales, if not immediately, at least down the road. Implementation. The trick here is to make the first purchase as simple and as easy as possible. It doesn't even have to be a major purchase. You aren't trying to score a huge sale. You are trying to involve your sales prospect in your business at this point. There's plenty of time to expand their sales later. So make that first sale as easy and as painless as possible. This works beautifully online by having a very simple and cheap offer on your homepage. It can be anything, really, as long as it is a simple process and can produce an immediate effect. Reports and media downloads make very good initial sales online because you can sell them cheap, in mass quantities, and you can also deliver it electronically for an immediate effect. You have a checkbox to put them on an email or newsletter list, too, to help you capture their email and allow you to market them for more products later. With a little research, you can find out what products your customers bought after they bought your initial lead sales package. Then, you can target new customers with that, as it's already proven to be a winner. This can lead to larger sales down the road. However, if you want to implement this strategy immediately, it takes a little more finesse. In the retail, face-to-face world, you would simply do like the deli clerks and offer another product to add to someone's checkout. New home construction companies do this all the time by calling them upgrades. You sign for a basic unit, and then they start asking you if you want to upgrade the countertops with marble, put in hardwood floors instead of carpet, and so on. Pretty soon, the price you committed to buying comes out to an exorbitant amount with all the additional things you've consented to buy. And should you decide you don't have enough money for everything you want, you're stuck with the difficult decision to figure out what you can cut out of your home package. Obviously, the answer is that it's just too difficult to decide what features or options you don't want. Instead, it's much easier to charge it. That's why stores also make their payment options as simple and as easy as possible. The more payment options you have, the easier it is to close a sale and overrule any objections on a lack of money. Some stores even ante up the ease of purchase by offering their own in-house financing. These financing offers usually start fairly low and come with very little risk on the part of the store, but it can help to convert sales prospects into bona fide customers. At any rate, to implement this at the end of a small sale, all you simply have to do is ask, almost as an afterthought, "Oh, do you want to include this X offer too?" It can be very effective if you are doing this face-to-face and you've already got up to leave and just before departing suddenly realize you forgot to tell them about that extra offer that would go good with this sale. The key is to be subtle. The hard sell online only makes people mad if you sign them up for extra offers in sneaky, underhanded ways. Always get the customer's approval clearly before charging them for the sale. This can be done at checkout by simply adding an extra page they click through to get to the checkout, where other offers are left unchecked but can be selected to add to their original purchase. Make it easy for them to move on and don't confuse them or you'll lose the sale. Another effective way to implement this technique is called a one-time offer, or OTO. This requires special software that presents the additional products after the first one is purchased but not yet delivered. In this scenario, instead of a download or thank you page, you are delivered to a page which says, "Thank you for your order. Now, because you've just purchased product XYZ, we have a special offer for you, and don't close this page because you will lose that offer once you do." In other words, you will never have another chance to take advantage of this offer. Then, you make an offer for another, usually complimentary product at a discount price. This add-on sale always increases your overall sales, and many people report that up to 50% or more take the OTO. So, imagine you sell the main product for $27 and then offer the resale rights to the product as an OTO for an additional $27, normally $47. So instead of a $27 sale, you've now made a $54 sale. Why not offer the resale rights for $54 up front instead? Because testing has shown that you'll get a lot more sales with the OTO than asking for the $54 at the start. You see, they've already bought the $27 product. Now, it's just a small extra amount, and that is more likely to get accepted. So let's say you make 100 sales at $27. That's $2,700. With the OTO, you make an additional $1,350 for a total sales of $4,050, assuming a 50% OTO rate. You can also do the same by offering a complimentary product instead of resale rights. You can offer the OTO at a higher price, called an upsell, or at a lower price, called a downsell. To get your OTO offer to truly appear once and only once, you'll need special software. There are a couple of ways to do this. You could hire a programmer at one of the outsourced sites like elance.com or rentacoder.com, or you can purchase an already programmed and much more elegant solution like Rapid Action Profits. If you go with Rapid Action Profits, you'll be able to do a lot more as well, since they have an add-on system where you can add features as they are developed. The timing. There are several different times when this strategy is effective. You can set it up immediately so that a very simple offer is made available on the home page. Make sure to change this offer for repeat visitors. The idea is to start to form a habit by having someone be tempted to buy a small item immediately. So that's the first time you want to try and slip your visitors into a buying groove. The second time to use it is after they've already committed to buying a small item and they are checking out. This can be done automatically using software that adds a footer with additional items that might interest your buyer, or an additional page to move through to get to the final checkout. Chapter 2. Mesmerize with something new. In a consumer culture saturated with products for sale everywhere, you have to distinguish what makes your offering better than everyone else's offering. This can be difficult to do if you're selling brooms or something so ordinary that the market has been completely saturated with ads talking about the benefit of brooms or some other item. People become jaded or bored with these ads and can't really justify to themselves why one broom is better than another. After all, they all sweep floors. That's when you want to try and see your product's unique personality and bring it out into the open where it can be appreciated. Now that's slick marketing to take something old and make it new again. Not only that, but maybe your product has some benefits that the other products truly don't have. You can polish those up and mention them in your copy too, to differentiate yourself on the market. Strategy. Okay, let's pretend you have a bunch of office supplies you are trying to sell online. You want to get into the mindset of your customers as much as you can. Why would they come online to buy office products? Why are they choosing to buy some products and not others? What is unique about a particular product that can give it a competitive edge? You can even gear your product's unique qualities to the audience you've targeted. For instance, say you are using social ads on Facebook to target a particular demographic of people for your office supplies. Well, Facebook and other social networking sites attract people who want to communicate their identities. So, you may decide to sell office products that can be personalized to suit a person's personality. Whatever the market is, that's the one you are looking to sell to. Keep that in mind. Try to use strategies that are different from your competitors and that play up your offerings. For instance, if you are selling martial arts courses, you don't want to only list those benefits that everyone else has on their website. You want to make sure you include extra benefits. While other people may throw out statistics on how many women are assaulted by someone they know, you might opt to go less of the scare tactic route. Instead, you may want to differentiate your courses by stating how easy they are to learn online and how they can help you develop fitness while keeping you safe. So, that way, even though there is a whole market of people who may be looking to do martial arts for safety, that's not the only reason. It may be people who are interested in Asian martial arts forms or fitness who you are engaging online. That's the beauty of online marketing. The audience is very wide open. You are going to have people worldwide who show up to visit your site, and you can't assume you know that the sole reason they are looking at your martial arts courses online is because you are afraid for your safety. Even if that is the case, you can always add these benefits, but don't forget to add the other benefits too. The psychology. The key here is that most people need a reason to say yes. That's why salespeople sell benefits and not products. Ask any good salesperson and they will tell you that the benefits and unique characteristics of the product is what eventually sells it, even if the marketer is the one highlighting these qualities. People generally don't buy things they don't need, but they will need a reason to say yes, even if they do need the product. The reason for this is that people are constantly pressured in this consumerist society to buy, buy, buy. At some point, they either become jaded or tune out. When they tune out, it's the marketer's responsibility to help them tune back in. The customer may even be in desperate need of your product, but they may not be aware of it. They are so tuned out. It is your job to slowly bring them back in and educate them about why they need your product. The implementation. Because your customer may not be aware of their need for your product, you will have to give them time to realize it. This is not a fast way to make a sale, but it is a way to convert visitors into customers eventually. Once they are your customer, they will be so convinced of your product's unique qualities and benefits, they will be hard-pressed to go elsewhere for their needs. So, you are not just converting a visitor, but you are also promoting your brand and establishing familiarity and authority with your products. So, don't be upset if you don't make a sale right away. This strategy takes patience. You can hit on a few customers who have a eureka moment when you first start listing your benefits, but mostly people need to hear or read things multiple times for it to have an impact. Then, something can happen in their lives that suddenly shifts their attention back to all those benefits you've been listing on your website or products for years. Maybe they didn't think they needed to supplement their diet, but now they are turning older and people around them are getting forgetful. Maybe they are noticing they are more forgetful too. Suddenly, they remember that one of the benefits of ginkgo biloba, a supplement you are selling, listed the benefits of memory enhancement. Suddenly, the product is more appealing. And the thing is, you never know when that eureka moment will happen with the visitors to your website, so you have to keep copy up, listing each product's unique qualities to help educate them for when the need actually arises. So remember to remind your customers often on the benefits of a particular product, even if they've seen the benefit on other pages. Repetition is important with this strategy. You want to be able to slowly but surely gain the attention of someone who is hearing the same message from various sources until it finally sinks in. That's why when you develop a new product, you don't just want to put one sales page up, but you want to write articles, introduce it to various people at the same time through groups, discussion forums, or even paid reviews. They need to hear about this product over and over again until they finally see a need for it in their lives. When that happens, it's totally up to the consumer. A great way to implement this strategy and make instant sales is with items that can bring out the inner child in people, like electronics. People love computers, cell phones, flat-screen TVs, and other types of electronic wizardry because it mesmerizes them with the technology and also brings out the impulse to play around with their new purchase. Anytime you have a product like that, you can make instant sales, and they can be very high-priced in comparison to older products in your inventory. So, even though this strategy can work for any product, in order to get it to work instantly, you want to use it most with products that have an instant mesmerizing effect on people. Things that are tactile and produce an experience of childlike wonder or playfulness are excellent products to use with this strategy. Software is also something that can be sold quite well with this strategy and allow a person to get a small experience of the larger product, either with a free trial or a limited demo-like experience. If your software is for games or like a game, this too can bring out the impulse to play and produce the desired effect to influence your potential buyer to want to possess this new toy. Timing. The timing to sell the benefit or the product's unique personality is when they land on your sales page. You should have a sales page that funnels people from a blog, your signature, or other places where they actually see all the benefits that make your product truly unique. You should set the title of your sales page to include the biggest and most important benefit that you want to highlight about your product or service. Many people don't get past that first title before moving away from the page, so make it count. It should highlight your product's unique nature while being something that is attractive to the majority of people who might land on your sales page. The second instance of using this strategy is directly underneath the title. Just list every last benefit you can possibly think of for your product or service. Many online marketers think that the longer your sales page is and the more benefits you list, the more likely you will hit one that eventually produces that eureka moment in the customer. Just be sure to ask for the sale several times on the same page too. So if they do happen to find that reason to buy, that overcomes all their objections. They don't have to scroll too far to see the link to buy too. Lastly, you can also start to keep a file of one-line benefits for each product you are selling. Add that to your signature and rotate them so that your signature changes constantly and people reading your emails see a new benefit every time they read one of your emails. Don't forget to include links to the sales page too. Another time to implement it is when you have multiple items in your inventory. You can highlight newer products over the others by showing how this new product has definite benefits over the other ones. The nice thing about new products is that they often can be higher priced and still sell. Think of when a new style of cell phone comes out. These types of electronic products fascinate people with the way they can push buttons, take pictures, send text mails, and endless other features. And the price is usually quite high for a new cell phone on the market because demand is expected to be high too. So, when you highlight a new product in your inventory, you also have the potential to make higher price sales too. The overall timing on this strategy is sometimes up to the customer, not the marketer. You can constantly remind people why your products are unique, but it's up to them to finally connect their need to your product. However, this dynamic shifts when the market environment makes your products far more attractive, like when there is a drought and you happen to have rain barrels. You may have spent years telling everyone that rain barrels save you money by helping them to store water and use it for their landscaping needs. However, if there's no drought, the fact that people have to buy them and install them without a perceived need can make them difficult to sell. With the drought, you will see your demand skyrocket because now you can also add, "Don't let the drought kill all your vulnerable landscaping by a rain barrel." See, your product didn't change, even your benefit did not change, but the environment for the sales changed dramatically, making the timing perfect for selling rain barrels. Chapter 3. Mine your sales prospects' unconscious desires. In this strategy, to turn your internet traffic into paying customers, you want to concentrate on the person buying, the sales prospect, rather than the product. Your sales prospects can determine what lures will work best for you in converting visitors to customers, but for that, you really have to understand your demographics. If you haven't done some sort of market research in your demographics, you will want to do that. In face-to-face interactions, the demographics are the people you visit to market with your products, but online, it's not as obvious who is visiting your site and why. So, you will want to gather some information through surveys, hiring market research for demographics, checking out the statistics of your website logs, and also using social networking to get a better feel for who might be interested in your products. Strategy. To understand the unconscious desires that may be lurking in a sales prospect's mind, you need to interact with them and start to get to know them. Some people do this with surveys by offering a freebie in exchange for visitors filling out a survey. However, that's not going to give you a full view as many people refuse to fill out surveys. So, the next option is to get the people who visit to interact in a forum or group where you can ask questions, see what people are talking about, and get a general feel for who is showing up at your website. So, start out by gathering information on anything that might appeal to your customer. In social networking places like Facebook, this is a pretty simple thing to do. You just look through the profiles that people draw up in a network, and that tells you a lot about what motivates people who join certain groups on Facebook. But you also have to direct your market research to your product interests too. So, say you are trying to find out the subconscious motivations of people who are visiting your pet site. There are the obvious reasons that they are interested in pets and pet products, but that doesn't determine the subconscious motivation that may get them to buy your pet products. For that, you might want to know more about your visitors. Do they have hobbies? Are they having safety issues? What about where they live? Is there something there that might make it more appealing to have pets, or more important, to have pet products? At the end of your research into this issue, you may come up with a couple of different ways to implement the strategy once you have a good idea of some underlying motivations that might be driving traffic to your website. Then, you simply either provide the solution to this unconscious desire by providing services that match your target market's needs. You will want to do that by writing online copy that expresses how it solves their needs by selling the benefits first. But if you have done your homework well, you will be pushing a trigger button that gets immediate attention and can result in an instant sale purely from understanding the psychology of why your customers buy. The psychology. Let's face it, when it comes to subconscious triggers, most people are on automatic pilot. Our entire society is set up to keep people in this hypnotic state, so people generally don't question why they do a certain thing or make a particular purchase. They just have the vague sense they need it. However, there are some subconscious triggers that appeal to almost everyone's egos: sex, money, and power. These are not so hidden, except that when people make a purchase, they may not even be aware that it is exactly one of those triggers that finally sealed the deal. That's why advertisers showcase pretty girls with their products for men. They may be selling electric shavers, but the woman is the one touching his face on television and going, "Ah," right? Isn't that so? So, was it the features of that particular razor that sold it, or the subconscious trigger that insinuated that the person's sex appeal would shoot up dramatically if they used it? Probably the latter. However, if you ask a person why they bought the razor, they'll most likely start to tell about the features because the trigger was so subconscious they don't even realize they were influenced by it. Then, there are subconscious triggers that aren't so universal but are specific to your demographic and your product. For instance, do you remember the commercial about the elderly person who falls and can't get up? Then they have an instant communication system around their neck that notifies someone they need help. Okay, so what is the subconscious trigger here? It's the fear of living alone and having no one around to help. That might be specific to the demographic of the elderly people they were trying to sell, but no matter how memorable the commercial is, most people buying it would probably not want to admit that fear of being frail or even being elderly for that matter. They might convince themselves that the reason they bought it was because it was convenient or not that expensive. So be aware that the unconscious desires can be universal or specific to your demographic. The key is to provide the solution or associate your product with that unconscious desire so that people will feel more compelled to close the deal. In a way, you will have to be smarter than people who are buying your products. You may have a product that doesn't appear to have universal appeal, but you want to use this strategy. It's your job to figure out a way to associate that product with either sex, money, or power, or some other unconscious desire that may land you a sale. The implementation. To implement this strategy online, you will not only be targeting sales, but any call to action that can increase the value of your website or blog. In these terms, a call to action may be to buy something, but it can also be to add a comment to your blog, to discuss something in a public forum, to join your email list, or any other action that makes the buyer interact with the site. If you have a lot of activity on your site, this can help you define what is motivating the visitors to your site and how to manifest your visitors' unconscious desires, as we talked about earlier. You will want to use the gathering phrase to call information on your visitors' subconscious desire. Maybe you experience more sales from people who are visiting your site from the southern United States in the summer than you do other regions of the country. That tells you that there is something specific to that region that is motivating sales. The fact is that southern states have a harder time controlling fleas in the summer months, and even though you may not live there, your website is worldwide and people have found it and are buying. Well, one of the ways you can influence a subconscious trigger is just to advertise how many Southerners actually buy from your site. But that's not very subtle. It may trigger feelings of belonging and also status too, but it can also make them wonder why they're being targeted. The key to using a subconscious trigger is to keep it somewhat subconscious. You may get it, but it shouldn't be too obvious to other people who are buying your products, or they will resist it. So, maybe you find out people in the South who have lots of dogs or cats living in the country and like country music or NASCAR. Voila! you set up your pet site with a referral from a country music star or a NASCAR driver. You don't mention the word South at all, even though that's your demographic. You don't say that Southerners have too many fleas in the summer. You just have your celebrity showing how effective it is to treat their pets with your product and what they like about it, the benefits. The subconscious trigger of identity is very powerful. They will identify your product with where they live, in the South, and probably think of you more in association with the celebrity every time they hear a song or watch NASCAR. Subconsciously, they will remember that ad, and if they happen to be doing it in the summer, you've probably already made a sale. So, the thing is to be subtle but focused on your product and target audience when you are going to close the deal. That doesn't mean that you can't use this strategy for other things to get your visitors involved in your site and help you determine their needs. As mentioned earlier, a valid action on your site might be someone putting a comment on your blog or adding a post to a discussion group on your site. If your site is a group site with membership levels and more, you can easily use the subconscious desire to belong to stimulate growth in your website more actively. You can even sell memberships on your site if you target the subconscious desire to belong to a status group very carefully. The way to do this is to build a core group first of people who are already online. This gives your site authority. Then use strategies like Facebook, where people join who have similar networks, interests, or because they are friends already. So you sign up people and invite them to have their friends join. You can even give them something for their effort by either using a point system or some free gift. This will help you build a network of people with similar interests who want to buy your products. Another way to use the subconscious desire to belong is to add different membership levels to your site. This works particularly well for sites that have a great deal of prestige. eBay uses this strategy by offering sellers a power seller status on their membership if they happen to have a high number of sales and a 98% feedback rating by the end of several months. If they do, they are automatically promoted to power seller status. Meanwhile, this motivates people to sell a lot and keep up good customer service on eBay. Similarly, if you own a respected research or nonprofit site, you can have people who want membership to get different perks per membership level and different types of recognition for being a part of your organization. This helps you sell memberships and increases your pool of people. Timing. The timing for this is actually very flexible. You can influence people through their subconscious programming at any stage of the sales cycle. It is particularly effective at the beginning when people might be attracted to your website but not quite identifying it with their needs yet. By carefully triggering those subconscious desires, they will associate your website and products with the solutions to their needs. So, while you can do this anytime, at the beginning it can form a powerful first impression without being overbearing or insulting to the buyer's intelligence. Another time that is perfect for this strategy is on your membership sales page, since you can trigger the particular subconscious reasons someone might join and help them to seal the deal. For instance, maybe you are a nonprofit that deals with environmental cleanup. Then you can have on your membership page the different levels and how each level helps you to do more good in the community. You can send them a bumper sticker or some other personally identifying perk to make them proud they belong to such a wonderful organization. Also, when a deal has already been closed, you might still be able to use a subconscious trigger right before the checkout to get more sales, like the Amazon list that shows people who bought this item also bought these, which triggers a status subconscious desire. How can you pass up the other books when so many other people have them? Are they smarter than you? Richer than you? What do they know that you don't know? So, you might get triggered to buy more just to keep up with the Joneses. Chapter 4. Spot the flaws first. If you ask a salesperson whether an objection to their sales presentation is bad, you'll get the answer, no. A good salesperson knows that with any presentation or marketing, objections will arise. That's a good thing, because once an objection is raised by the sales prospect, most marketers can resolve it and dismiss it, leaving the way clear to buying their product. So, objections typically are raised by the customer in most sales transactions. But this strategy is done by the seller and not the potential buyer. That's right, you will be the one raising the objections so that you can just as swiftly dismiss them and get to the closing. The reason this particular strategy is important in online marketing is because you are not interacting with the potential buyer face to face. They visit your site, find something they like, and, like any reasonable customer, they will start to think of reasons they shouldn't buy it. That's just what most people do. They resist being marketed. So, if your product has any obvious flaws, that's exactly the first objection that will be raised in their mind. Maybe the product is ugly, or it costs too much, or it's gotten bad reviews. Don't wait for the customer to raise that objection in their own minds and click away. Instead, you raise it first. So, for instance, if you know your product costs more than all the competitors, raise that first by saying, "Our product costs more because it's better than the competition," and then go on to use that as a lead-in to the benefits. The strategy. The strategy is to disarm your buyer by bringing up the objections first before they even have time to think about it or utter it in their minds. This works whether the product has some faults or not, but it is especially effective with those that have obvious faults. Don't believe that a buyer will miss a flaw with the product, or that if you concentrate on only highlighting the good qualities, that the bad qualities won't be noticed. Consumers are very sophisticated these days. Online retailing has made it incredibly easy for them to comparison shop without having to visit multiple stores. Some sites even have reviews of products online that tell them which kinds are the best. Of course, magazines like Consumer Reports will tell buyers what basic features they can expect from a product and what makes one a better deal than another. It's a bit naive to think that you will have a totally uninformed consumer drop by your website and not notice anything that is obviously flawed about your product. That doesn't mean you can't bring that up first and either make it a feature or find a way to resolve that objection that satisfies them as fair. The psychology. When you bring up an objection first, it has a couple of effects. First, it makes you appear to be honest and forthright because you willingly brought up the subject first. It also decreases the resistance your buyer may have to the objection because you've reframed it in a way that acknowledges the flaw but gives them a way to justify it. So, by simply being willing to be upfront, you can undercut the objection before it happens. This is a way to disarm the reaction of the buyer by simply acknowledging the concern up front. If, on the other hand, you took the tact of trying to avoid the flaw and hoping they didn't see it, you would appear to be deceitful and the person would lose confidence in the sale. If you brought up the flaw but minimized it as a valid objection, your buyer will wonder what else is wrong with your product that you don't think is worth mentioning. But if you bring up the flaw, acknowledge it, and then resolve it for them in a way that they can justify the purchase, you close the deal. In a way, the buyer is more likely to trust the rest of the presentation because you didn't gloss over the bad features of your product. Since you were honest enough to be upfront, that lends you credibility, and that credibility rubs off on the product, whether it deserves it or not. And when you go on to actually talk about the positive features, they are given more weight because you were honest with the negative ones. While you might think people would be turned off by acknowledging a defect, hiding it under the rug is a worse offense in most people's mind. The implementation. This is something that you should consider when you have a product or service with an obvious flaw. Let's say that you are trying to sell used tires. Okay, used tires are obviously not as good as new tires, are they? Well, you can't advertise the tire like new tires. So you admit, hey, they're used tires. Then you can go on to say that despite the fact they are used tires and not brand new, they are checked to make sure they have sufficient tread on them. They pass some inspections for holes, etc. You offer a guarantee should they not last a certain amount of miles, and you can still offer the same brands that other retail people sell brand new. Oh, and don't forget that if they're used, you save money too because the price is lower for the same brands. This works very well if you are selling items on eBay and they are not new or they have some obvious defect. You want to be completely upfront with that defect. It should be the very first thing you discuss so that there is absolutely no misunderstanding that the product may be perceived to be flawed by any other standards. The worst thing that can happen online is that your customer gets a product delivered to them that doesn't match the description on your website. You can expect them to not only never buy another thing from your site, but on eBay and places that allow your customers to provide feedback, you will get negative feedback and scare other customers away. However, that doesn't mean that you can only sell new products that are in perfect mint condition online. Far from it. It means that you need to be explicit about the condition of the items that you are selling and very upfront about them. Another way to implement this is to offer a limited guarantee on the product. That way, if the person is completely unsatisfied, they can return it or get some form of compensation for their troubles. This is one way to dismiss many objections people might have about buying items that aren't new or in perfect condition. Unfortunately, online, people don't always read every piece of copy you put up about your product. However, they do usually read the very first part of the copy before scrolling down. It seems strange, but that's where you will put the acknowledgement of the defect. If you bury it elsewhere in the copy and get an order and the customer becomes irate, directing them to online copy where your flaw is buried 2/3 of the way down the page is going to make them even madder. On the other hand, if you say, "Yeah, this piece of art is but ugly," it's a great way to get attention and dismiss the worst defect you have on the product. Maybe the piece of art you are auctioning is but ugly. However, it's also one of a limited collection of prints made by a celebrated artist and worth hundreds of dollars. The customer scrolling through eBay or your site will initially be shocked to see that you actually admit that this product you are selling has an obvious flaw. They even may find it humorous. It will definitely get their attention, and that will lead them to read the rest of the copy, which explains all of the other benefits and how you can dismiss the defect as either part of the charm of the piece or as not consequential to its actual value. Don't be afraid to get down to the real nitty-gritty details of why the product is flawed. Maybe it's ugly because it has too many loud colors. Maybe it's ugly because it has drab colors. Maybe it's ugly because it's abstract or too primitive. Whatever the problem is, be very clear that you understand that this is something that most people would consider an undesirable trait. Then, go on to dismiss it by building up the positive benefits of the product immediately afterwards. You are dismissing the flaw either by addressing the concern directly, or you are going to show that despite this flaw, the benefits of the product far outweigh the flaw mentioned. This strategy is often used by real estate agents when they show houses with obvious flaws. They might point out the fact that the house is a little older than desired by the client, but the location is so good that the money they save on buying an older house can be used to update it, and then they have both a good location and a newer home. They might show off the badly stained carpets and tell their buyers that since the carpets are so badly stained, they can ask for a carpet allowance and put in whatever they want after they move in, making it their own. The trick here is to do this as people are considering buying your product, not as an introduction, but as part of the description of the item. Obviously, this strategy is best left to the actual sales page than as a way to introduce a product to people on online forums or discussions groups. It's for people who already have a good idea that they want to buy in this category and that they may have some decisions to make on whether a flaw that is apparent is a deal breaker or not. Timing. The time to bring up a default is not after you've sold them on the benefits, but before. It should be brought up immediately before the person has time to discover it themselves, but not as an introduction to people who haven't had a chance to discover your site yet. It's like the difference between seeing a house on the market and wanting to visit it and being at the door of a house and opening the door to actually experience it. If you are imagining the house from afar, if you start to talk about the flaws even before you visited it, the value of the house plummets and you're less likely to visit the house. You haven't had a chance to experience it, so that the better characteristics of the house can outweigh the flaw. So don't mention these items unless they are already in an area where they have an option to buy and can have full experience of the product you are offering. Then it's more like you are there with the potential buyer and they are walking through the door as a real estate agent to show them your property that is for sale. If you are walking into a house as a real estate agent, you can say, "The appliances are old, but you can always ask for an appliance upgrade if you like the house." You don't wait until the person walks into the kitchen, stares at the appliances, and then says, "The appliances are outdated." If you've been in this house before, you should know the negatives, and it should be said as you're opening the door to let them in, preferably before they've even had the chance to see the kitchen. If you bring it up early in the experience, but not before they're actually in there with you visiting the products, and in all its gory detail, they imagine something far worse, and when they get to the kitchen, they might even mutter, "Well, it's not that bad." That's because you are so upfront with them that they realize it's not a big deal. Online, you don't want to pull all kinds of objections on your homepage, but you do want the sales page to have them. If you know there is a problem with the product, if you are doing eBay to make sales and using them as a sales partner, you will want to make sure it is in bold and the title heading at the top of the page. You don't want people to miss it and then end up with something they object to after they've already paid for them. That will only get you irate customers and negative feedback. So the best timing is always right up front. Chapter 5. Convert problems into opportunities. If you do spot a problem with your product, you can dismiss it, as in the earlier example, or you can convert it into an opportunity. This strategy is a little more creative than the last one where you are just being blunt about your dirty laundry. In this one, you are being truthful about the problem, but you are reframing it from a negative to a positive. Once people start to see that you may have a point, that negative really is a positive, then you don't even have to dismiss the objection. It becomes another selling feature. So, you do have to raise the objection first and use the strategy in Chapter 4, but you want to resolve the objection on a positive note. If you can be really creative and sell that problem as a feature, it can be a way to disarm and even charm people reading the copy on your website. The strategy. The strategy involves learning how your potential buyers perceive your product and any objections they might raise in their own minds. You don't have to be a mind reader to figure that out. You can simply ask them. You can set up surveys that offer a discount coupon on your product or offers a freebie to get a little market research on particular products. You have to know which objections might be converted into opportunities, and often they may not even be objections that you would think about first. You can even add a few posts about a product on some group sites or your own forums and see what people don't like about the product as well as what they do like. Some of these objections may be specific to your particular product, but others might be pretty generic. For instance, say you are selling tattoo art online. Well, you obviously aren't the only one selling tattoo art designs, and you can visit specialty groups and forums and find out what people are talking about. Maybe they think unicorn tattoos are lame, or there is a particular discussion on whether it's such a good idea to have a permanent design on your body or not. Maybe you hear about the bad reactions people got years later from some tattoo they got when they were younger. So now the objection is that a tattoo is permanent. However, it also happens to be the opportunity because tattoos are permanent. They don't rub off, they are unique and can highlight your personality or mark a particular moment or event in your life, and you will always have that remembrance. So, even though some of the people might perceive the fact that a tattoo as permanent as a problem later in life, it's what also makes it so attractive too. All you need to do is educate the person visiting your site on why it is more of an opportunity than a potential problem. For this, you can even suggest that some tattoos now come with ink that can be removed with laser later. In the case of tattoos, we have a generic problem that crops up that makes an excellent opportunity. However, there may actually be problems that are specific to your product. In the case of earlier examples of a piece of art that is terribly ugly, Would you be able to make it an opportunity? It is possible with a little creativity. Aren't ugly works of art controversial and conversation starters? Maybe it represents a particular time period or style of art that is only recognized by discriminating art buyers. In that case, the fact that it is ugly is the opportunity to express exactly why you were savvy enough to buy the piece anyway. It shows you are a person who understands art and the value of a piece of work. The psychology. Even though the major part of this strategy is to reframe a negative into a positive, you don't want to try to force something that will never be. You don't want to try to convince the potential buyer of something that is ludicrous or a stretch to believe, because people are pretty smart about that sort of thing. So, you are reframing the objection into a positive, but in a way that is believable. In another way, if you happen to reframe something that would normally appear negative into a positive in a bright and refreshing way, people will be surprised at first. That surprise lowers their resistance to believing the new way the problem has turned into an opportunity. Again, by raising the objection first, you have gotten the upper hand. You have set the stage to be the authority on this particular problem, and you have guided the potential buyer to a solution that not only resolves the problem, but presents them with a great opportunity too. At first, it will stir up feelings of shock that you dared to bring up the problem first. Then, it will lend you credibility and provide your voice with more authority on the subject. Finally, it will reduce their defenses and make it easy for them to go along with your final assessment of the problem as an opportunity. They will be grateful you actually pointed out something to them that they just might have missed. The implementation. Okay, so you've done some market research and gotten a list of possible objections for your particular product or market. For each product, take out a sheet of paper and create 2 columns by running a line down the middle of an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. On the first side, list all of the objections that you discovered or thought up, and then start to go through them one by one. You don't want to pick every objection and try to make it an opportunity. What that will do is make people think there are far too many problems with the product and you're just messing with their minds. If you pick an objection that is not very serious to highlight because it's easily converted into a positive, it will make you appear condescending instead of helpful. And if you pick something that isn't really an objection, you just think it might be able to be perceived as one, you are going to be raising an objection in your potential customer's mind that might never have surfaced. This will make them stop and think about what other red flags they've missed. So, you don't want to pick a weak objection or one that is non-existent. What you want to do is locate serious objections that people might have to your product and then creatively turn them into positive. So be careful which objections you consider to highlight, as it can make or break this strategy. Once you know which objections might qualify for this strategy, the fun starts. You have to be very creative and think up a resolution for each strategy that makes that problem an opportunity. There are some objections that are universal, not specific to your market or your product. These are things like the price is too high, it takes too long to get it, it's not convenient, or the competition has better or different features. Don't forget that you can target these objections as well, and maybe you want to start with them for every product just to get the hang of this. Then you think up a reason for why that objection is really an opportunity. A classic example of this is when you have a product that is really expensive when compared to the competition. You can say it is a good value for the money because it offers more features than the competition. So, while you pay more than the others, you get more, and in the end, it's worth more too. This may be a little more canned in online presentation than in regular face-to-face presentation. If you are meeting a sales prospect in person, you can often hear the objections live and/or anticipate them better from the comments they make. Online, you can't really interact that much with your visitor, so you have to take the strategy of doing your research and then picking just one of the biggest flaws and using that as a lead-in for your sales page. If you have multiple objections you want to resolve, then you can use a table that compares features between your product and other leading brands. Tables are very easy on the eyes of people reading online materials. so they can see that price-wise you are more expensive, but then the rest of the features are checked for you and your competitors' columns are empty. This gives a very big visual impact and is a way of raising objections and resolving them without having to explain it out in a paragraph. The table is a visual tool that does it for you. Always, always, always be upfront about any flaw or objection that is going to be a major concern for your customer. If you fail to address it, the potential buyers might bring it up or they might not, but they will surely be thinking about it. If you don't bring it up, it will never be resolved in their minds. An unresolved objection is going to dampen your sales. So, despite the fact that it may seem strange to be bringing up your product's bad points, it's far worse to not acknowledge them at all. So, what happens if you are in the middle of a sales presentation and the product breaks or it doesn't perform the way you would expect it to? Acknowledge it right away and let people know the reason for that particular problem. Maybe you can bring up the fact that even if the product does not perform the way advertised, there is a guarantee they can use to get a replacement or something similar. Sometimes people don't want to buy things online because they don't know what they are going to get when it arrives. This is particularly true of diamonds. The biggest objection a person buying a diamond online has is how could they be sure the diamond they received was worth the thousands of dollars spent on it? So many online diamond retailers raise that objection as a valid objection and showcase the fact that their diamonds are appraised by a particular agency, or they might discuss how the value is established and how safe the delivery is and any money-back guarantees too. Now, the fact that you're buying a diamond online and may not be able to visually see it before it arrives and don't know how to determine worth is an opportunity to have a valid certification of your diamond for free through the website's policies. The timing. The timing of this strategy is similar to the last strategy. Always bring up the objection first before your customer has a chance to do it for you. You can shock them with the declaration of a particular problem. You can even not make it a statement, but a question like, "Are you afraid that you don't know if the diamond you buy online is worth what you paid for it?" That lead-in will automatically bring people in because it acknowledges a fear that may lurk in the mind of the prospect, but that has not been verbalized. Once you verbalize it, many people can relate to that fear and it draws their attention as being relevant to their personal experience. You come off looking as someone who is sympathetic and understanding for even bringing it up. Then, when you provide the resolution, "Our diamonds are certified by third-party appraisals that are board certified to be blank," you not only have given them, the prospective buyer, the solution right away, but also relieve the fear and anxiety experienced with that particular problem. That sense of immediate anxiety and relief can end up leading to an instant sale. You can do this very well in a targeted email campaign for those people who have subscribed to your email list. Don't spam people with advertisements, but if you are trying out a new product that most people have a problem buying online for some reason, you can use that niche to help you use this strategy by turning that objection into an opportunity. When presented correctly, it can be a way to engage the reader and draw them into your copy far enough for them to find the solution to their problem and associate your product with the new opportunity for themselves. Chapter 6. Engage participation and pride of ownership. People who get involved tend to be more committed to a particular path than those who are just visiting. This is true whether you are doing retail sales or online sales. However, in face-to-face presentation, people are naturally involved because a social interaction is taking place and they usually give you their full attention. Online, people may be surfing the web and be multitasking on their PCs. You don't know if you have their attention or not since you're not directly there to give them eye contact. So, how do you get them involved in your site if you can't reach out through their terminal and put the product in their hands? Well, the solution is a lot easier than you think, since social networking sites are now more predominant. Blogs, discussion groups, forums, and even surveys and games can be a way to encourage the person to stop a moment and interact with your site. Once you've engaged their participation, they will start to identify with your site more. Now, if you get them to become a regular visitor who comments on your blog or has tried out some of your products, they start to feel like this is their home. They start to take pride in being part of your site, and it can give them feelings like pride of ownership. The strategy. Direct sales, like mail marketing, use something called an involvement device to get people involved over a long distance. That is something that they can touch and feel, and that asks for some participation on their part. The one involvement device that comes to mind is some of the advertisements that ask you to peel a sticker from a particular part of the advertisement and place it somewhere else to signal your acceptance of the offer. It seems very simplistic that having someone place a sticker or add a business card or drop something into a slot could ever increase sales, but it does. Once a person becomes involved in the sales process, they are more apt to pay attention and buy. Any device that engages the reader brings them into the buying process and reduces their resistance to the offer. You don't just want to use any involvement device. You typically want to use something that ties into what you are selling. That's why Facebook applications are so popular, because they are a great involvement device and typically tie into the product or company and provide a way for people to associate their participation with some company or product. Then, if there is a link available back to the website, you are already primed to consider this a part of your virtual heritage. Another type of involvement device is like the advertisements that ask you to draw a picture to see if you qualify for drawing lessons. You find that you get so involved in getting the picture done right that you can hardly wait to mail it off and receive an offer for classes in the mail. Not only did those advertisers correctly identify people who might have an interest in buying art classes, but they also got them so involved they probably waited by the mailbox to see if they were accepted for this offer. That's very clever marketing. The key there is that involvement device used was directly related to the product or services being sold. You can still use an involvement device that merely gets a person to participate, and online, that would be like getting a comment on a blog. A person has taken some action that has gotten them involved in your community, but did it make a sale? Not really. It might later, but not right away. So the best involvement devices are those that are tied directly to the product or service you are trying to market. The psychology. Have you ever seen a baby find a new toy and become completely fascinated by it? It captures their attention, and all their old toys get ignored while they explore this new object. They may put it in their mouths, stare at it intently, shake it, or even smash it on the floor. They get highly involved in just touching it and trying to get as much experience as they can out of it. Well, adults still have that fascination with new toys, and that's part of the psychology of offering them something new that brings up that childish wonder of exploration. The other thing is that people love to be challenged and to beat something and identify themselves as a winner. Some of the puzzles, games, and involvement devices can include different levels that differentiate your ability from other people and give you a sense of pride that you made it to a certain level. Another way to involve people is to make it fun. Who doesn't want to include a little entertainment in their day? In fact, entertainment is one of the most sought-after things in our Western culture. If you happen to provide a fun involvement device that also happens to lead them to your product, all the better, right? They get to have some fun, and you end up with a sale, so in a sense, it's win-win. Also, people tend to distrust a product that they can't see, touch, or feel. So, in direct retail sales, the involvement device is typically the ability to try on a dress before buying, kick the tires of a new car, or test drive it, or even get a free makeover at a makeup department store booth. They want the experience of possessing the item before they actually purchase it. These types of retail actions are simple ways to involve a person just by allowing them to touch and experience the product firsthand. This becomes a little harder in the virtual world of online sales because your product is not there to have and hold, but you can still produce some very good involvement devices and even virtual, visualize, and experience ads that can lead to bigger sales. The implementation. Since we are basically concerned with turning traffic from your website into customers, we want to really understand how to create an involvement device online. It's really not that hard once you understand the concept. What you want to do is put yourself in the customer's shoes and see how you can get them engaged in at least visualizing themselves using your product or service. In the first strategy, you can simply provide a novel and fun gimmick to your site to get them involved. If you are a dating site, for instance, you might want to add a compatibility test or personality test to your website. Once they complete that, you can sell the service by saying, "Find compatible people who match your personality on our site." It not only gets them involved right away, but it appeals to ego identity, a large reason people join community sites. Social networking is great for forming groups of people who can interact with each other. In a sense, the people on your site become the involvement device that attracts more people. If you are trying to sell memberships, you want to highlight who already is a member on your site and why it is worth it for you to join so you can network with them too. If you really think about it, your entire website can be an involvement device. It has buttons people can push, drop-down menus they can fiddle with, and maybe videos they can watch. So you can do the same thing when you are selling a particular product. Just be careful that you don't get too fancy. Some people try to involve their visitors by adding incredible technologies that look great on newer PCs but can't be opened on older models. You don't want to lose a customer because the involvement device is too complicated or it crashes their system. You want something simple and you want it to appeal to the psychology more than the technology. When you are marketing people offline, you can also provide involvement devices that lead back to your products online. There are now business cards that are mini CD-ROMs that can be loaded into a computer and lead people straight to your website. Just the fascination of seeing something so small, so cute, and so novel will get people to put it in their machine to see what it does. Once they are on your site, you can involve them further with other involvement devices. But what if you're selling engagement rings online? How could you possibly create an involvement device for that? Won't someone want to try on the ring before buying? Here is where you can see the magic of the internet really shine. You can hire a programmer to build a database of your inventory and an applet that allows them to build a ring online in the virtual world. Thus, they not only get the fun of creating something online, but they get to try out the ring too in their imagination. It's the closest thing to actually being in a retail store where they can hold the ring in their hands. It may take a bit more programming and sophistication, but if your market demands a virtual tryout, there are many ways to do this, and as many online diamond marketers have proven. Your call to action also includes an involvement device or fun game by allowing them some discount for performing a specific function on your site and thus getting access to a coupon code. Once they have that coupon code, wouldn't they want to use it to get the discount? So you lead the potential buyer from their fun game straight back to your product or service. Finally, even emails or sales copy can get the reader involved if you happen to use the person's name in them and help them to imagine what it's like to experience your product. If you have a product that can be personalized, that also will give a person a feeling of pride of ownership before they've gotten the product in their hands. As can be seen, there are a great many ways to use this strategy online to help promote participation and involvement with your website and products. The timing. This strategy works best at the very beginning of your sales funnel or even before. You should have at least a few involvement devices on your website to help you create membership if you are a social networking site. Otherwise, people lose interest in just writing posts and move on. If you have a fun game or add a video from YouTube, when they first land on your page, your website appears more interactive and alive. Have you ever seen the sign on the side of the road as you're waiting in a traffic jam that says, "You could live here"? That is a simple device that helps you imagine how much time you could save living there, how much nicer your life would be, and how you could own a condo there if you just took the initiative to walk in the door. That's a very powerful involvement device, and it wasn't even in a sales brochure. You might not have even been thinking of buying a condo up until then. So that explains that the timing on this strategy is sometimes even before the person has realized that your company even exists or what your products are. You can wait for them to somehow stumble upon your site, but why not go out to places where people in your target demographic are and just put a link to your fun, experimental involvement device there? You don't have to sell the product. You don't have to tell them at the end. They'll be solicited to buy a product. Once they choose to try this out, they will be hooked, and you will have created a sales opportunity where none existed. Once you have a person involved in the product, you can continue to keep them involved by upgrading the experience. This will create a habit, reducing their resistance to future purchases too. So, if you are using a game, make sure you have various levels. Keep the strategy going continuously and vary it every now and then to keep people involved and buying. Chapter 7. Be authentic and engender trust. In the past, marketers tried to glamorize their products or services in a way that was clearly inauthentic. The type of hype seems to have really jaded a lot of consumers who are pretty savvy these days. They are more likely to turn a deaf ear to outrageous claims or over-the-top commercial images than to pay attention. They do not engender trust. The new way to generate trust is to not try to pull the wool over anyone's eyes, but rather be authentic with our product and who we are. In the age of social networking, more and more people are beginning to learn the value to their social reputation. A reputation that is misrepresented is one that is not trustworthy. If a person is not trustworthy, they do not have enough credibility to sell anyone in such a transparent environment. What will happen is that others in the social network will appear to warn people about the lack of authenticity, and their social reputation will plummet along with their sales. Now, you can be authentic without necessarily being a squeaky clean moralist. Authenticity basically means that you have enough integrity to express things exactly as they are. If you are a person who sells diet advice but can't be bothered to control your own diet, that lack of integrity is going to come back to bite you in a social networking situation. However, if you are authentic and say that you could never stay on any diet and didn't see the reason for them, and then you found this diet and it helped you lose 50 pounds, then you are being authentic. Thus, it becomes more and more important to believe in the products and services you are selling to be able to report on them authentically and engender trust. The strategy. Consistency is the byword here. If you are consistent in your words and actions, then you become more authentic and can be trusted more. We've all had the experience of seeing someone say something and then do another. What impression does that leave? You immediately realize that the person is a hypocrite or a con at worst, or doesn't know what they're talking about at best. So, to avoid giving off that impression, always make sure that your actions match your words. This goes for the way you describe you, your product, and how well you keep your promises to the people buying from your site. One way to establish authenticity is to either bank on your own reputation or someone else's well-known reputation. You build a reputation through social networking that carefully represents the image you want for your company or your product. Or, if you don't want to go through all that trouble, you find ways to associate with people who have already done that, have a higher degree of credibility, and then get them to endorse your product or services. Be clear about whether all of your copy, all of your products, and your public image are in line with the way you want people to perceive you. If you genuinely believe in what you are selling, that will come through, and people will catch your enthusiasm simply from the power of your own self-trust. However, the same is true if you aren't careful with the copy or the image you are portraying. If you sell diet products and you are 50 pounds overweight, people will notice it, even if not consciously. You don't want to put your image on that website if you are seriously overweight, because it shows you aren't being authentic about helping people lose weight. So, much of this strategy is about being aware. Be aware what image you are projecting. Be aware of what topics or writing is subconsciously influencing your potential buyer. Be sure that anything you associate with, whether it be celebrity or an affiliate, be in line with that image you want for you and your products. Secondly, always deliver more than what you promise, and your authenticity and integrity score will shoot through the roof. The psychology. If you are engaging in online marketing and you are trying to sell products or services without even knowing a potential prospect, the need for authenticity increases. It has taken quite a bit of time for people to begin to trust e-commerce, and many of the reasons for that is because of the potential for being conned online. Visitors will be trying to gauge your authenticity from every piece of email, copy, blog, or image they view. They want to know that you are trustworthy enough to deliver what you say you deliver. After all, no one wants to send money and either get nothing or a very bad product in return. Since they can't even touch the product they are requesting, it becomes even more important they trust the vendor enough to deliver what they promise. When you go retail shopping, you can look into someone's eyes and get a good feel for whether someone is trying to con you or not. The cues for that behavior may be subtle, but people have a sixth sense about these things. They want that firm handshake, that eye-to-eye contact, that honesty, and that ability to resolve their issues for them. In addition, they like to be able to view a product before they actually buy it. They might want to touch it or try it out first too. Well, when all of that is denied, they have to rely on someone else's word for whether they are engaging in a good transaction or whether they are just throwing their money away. In order to relieve that anxiety, you implement the strategy to increase your level of authenticity to promote a sense of mutual trust. But how are you going to do that online when they can't even see your face, much less touch the product? Implementation. The key is in the subtle cues that are given off by all interactions with a potential buyer. Make sure that every one of your interactions reflects exactly the image you want for your company, your products, or your services. Things to look for in your copy or interactions that could set off doubts in your buyer's mind are things like over-exaggerating your product's benefits or speaking out of context from the image you want to portray. The best way to avoid some of these subtle patterns of speech that can trigger doubts about your authenticity is to pay attention or to avoid marketing anything you don't believe in 100%. Let's face it, if you are selling acne products and you've either never tried it because you never experienced a bad outbreak, or you tried it and it failed to work for you, when you go to sell that product, the lack of enthusiasm and belief will shine through the choice of words, the images you use, and other interactions. It's part of you, and despite the fact that you may try to convince yourself that this is a really good product that is worth marketing, because acne products sell well on the internet, you will find that if you don't believe in it, your words and interactions will take on a subtle tone of over-exaggeration or bland endorsements. Worse, when someone contacts you directly to ask you what your experience was with the product, you may even have to outright lie to save face. This isn't to suggest that you shouldn't sell that particular acne product. The problem is the way you implement the strategy. If you are endorsing it personally, you are going to want to have some good experience with the product to remain authentic while selling it. If you are simply choosing acne products as your main market, then you can include it with other acne products that you know do work and simply rate it lower than the others or leave it unrated. That way, you maintain a degree of authenticity while being able to promote more products. And you may find a way to engage your visitors by asking them to rate the products themselves for others. Then, you not only get authenticity from unpaid reviews, but you didn't have to put your own reputation up in the process. Forms of this strategy are the celebrity sponsor who tells everyone that they've used your products and like them. Just be sure it is a celebrity that reflects your values and the product's proper image. If your celebrity just got convicted of dogfighting, racketeering charges, you would not want them endorsing your pet products. Social networking also takes this strategy to new heights. If you have a discussion group or forum and you have a new product, you can offer the product out for the first 10 people who ask for it in exchange for a review of it on the site. Since many discussion groups, social networking sites, and forums have a large audience, you end up picking up a great deal of authenticity by using random people who will give their honest opinion on your products. Just be sure they are good products and good reviews. The timing. The timing for this is right in the middle of your sales presentation. Once your sales prospect is engaged and they are a loyal visitor to your site or a subscriber to your blog, endeavor to be consistent and trustworthy in all your interactions. This will help to keep people coming back again and again. Another time to use this is when you are putting out brand new products. There, you have to attract new sales, and banking on your reputation is one way to help spur the belief that this new product is just as good, if not better, than your other products. Engage others to review your products too, and this will help to spur sales. Capitalize on the authentic image you've already created with your past customers. That's the time to market people who already trust you by making sure they are updated on all the new products that you are selling. This can lead to many repeat sales. Finally, the best way to establish authenticity is to deliver what you promise when you promise it. Some people try to do this even better by always delivering more than what they promised and earlier than expected. That gives them a little leeway should the post office screw up the timing or something else happens. So, if you want to be perceived as being truly authentic, strive to take control of all aspects of your business from delivery to customer support. Failure in any of these areas will reduce your authenticity because it reflects badly on the consistency of the promise you make and what is finally delivered. If you want to see if your authenticity is being questioned, simply send out customer satisfaction surveys on a regular basis or after an online transaction. These are pretty easy to implement on your site and can help you find areas that are not meeting the high standards of consistency that you want to maintain. You can have these collected monthly for review and/or endeavor to contact people who put in negative feedback immediately without delay. This helps to reduce the impact of any failure in your consistency and can even increase your authenticity if you manage to resolve a problem that has plagued a customer who didn't know what to do or who to contact to resolve the issue. It also shows you care about your customers. Chapter 8. Enchant with Stories. If you've ever heard the story of 1001 Arabian Nights, you know the power of stories to enchant the listener. That's because people are hardwired to myth for ancient times. They want to hear things spoken in story form, and their subconscious has a way of remembering what they hear in story form better than visual cues. If you use stories in your marketing, you will not only capture people's attention, but you will also help them to remember you long after they've left your website. The other aspect of stories that enchants people is the capacity to create empathy and communion with the storyteller. How many of us remember asking our parents to read a bedtime story? Wasn't it a special time of bonding for us? The same can be true of stories that you tell when you are trying to establish a rapport with people coming to your website. The strategy. The strategy is to try to capture a person's attention by initiating a story that fascinates them into a longer relationship with you. Obviously, they will not leave until they've heard the punchline or found out how the story ended. The story should have some human elements in it so that your reader can relate to it on a personal level. If it is just a story of a product without some human element, it will sound like hype. So be careful to include your product or service in the story, but don't make it a story solely about the product. The story should try to stir the reader's curiosity from the get-go. It is the sense of what's going to happen that will lead the reader deeper and deeper into your story. It can be a story about some people's experience with your product. It can be a story about the development or discovery of your product. It can be a humorous story about your product. It really doesn't matter as long as you are engaging the reader in a deeper relationship and connection with your product or service. The way you know if the strategy is working is if you can get the reader to read the entire story to the very end, where the sales pitch is. Once they have become so involved in the storyline they will empathize with the actors in the story, identify with the product and their own predicaments, and be very likely to consider buying the product right then and there. That's the power of a good story. It breaks down the resistance to buying, much like a set of beliefs does too. But in this case, it works more subconsciously than consciously, which makes it far more powerful strategy in the long run. They may leave your website and 3 hours later still remember that story, and thus they will also remember your product better. The deeper the impact of a story, the more likely the reader will remember your products when they have a need or are looking for a solution like your story relates. The psychology. Storytelling involves telling jokes as well as long, drawn-out stories with a beginning, middle, and end. They work to lessen the awkwardness of a social encounter, especially between people who have never met before. If you can get a person to laugh at your joke or identify with your story, you become more familiar with them and less of a stranger. The impact of a story is only as good as how well it causes the reader to bond with the storyteller and be drawn into the final conclusion of the story. Jokes are very easy to reel off at the beginning of a sales encounter, but they are much more difficult to enact well. It takes a certain flair to be able to tell a joke well so that it comes out humorous and not lame. However, jokes are brilliant ways to tell a tiny story in a very small amount of time and have people bond with you through the mechanism of humor and laughter. It builds a warm camaraderie and can help you establish mutual trust from the onset. However, if you're not good at telling jokes, telling a personal account or story can be another great way to bond with your website visitors. It brings the human element to the forefront of your website and humanizes the technological aspect of being online. It appeals to the subconscious triggers within a person and can be a subtle way to manipulate the unconscious desires or fears they may be experiencing to help them make the decision to buy. The implementation. Online stories can involve all sorts of media, from written copy to cartoons or video blogs. If you have a good short story that can be made into a video, you can add that to YouTube to try to make it go viral. It can be a story that relates to your products as the solution to an embarrassing event with a title. Don't let this happen to you. At the end, you put a link to your website to draw that traffic to your sales page. That's the way to use a video and the power of the internet to create a sales page storyline. It can be very powerful if plenty of people relate to it or find it humorous, as it can be spread across the internet very quickly if it has mass appeal. Another way to use a story is through written copy on your website. Maybe the story has a lesson to teach about why your product is the solution to a particular dilemma. Maybe you want to relate a humorous story about your product that is entertaining for the reader. Maybe you want to give the reader the opportunity to experience an aha moment that some other customer had when they used your product or service. It really doesn't matter what you write, as long as it stirs the reader's curiosity, draws the reader in, and creates a lasting impression. Then, by the time you make your sales pitch at the end, the story has been embedded in their subconscious and will trigger various impulses to buy. Cartoons or images are like mini stories that can convey a quick synopsis or be a good lead-in for a story. If that image captures a visitor's attention enough, they will probably scroll down and read the story behind it. So don't think that this is all about copy. Use everything you can to draw a visitor into the copy that eventually has your sales pitch at the end and a call to action to buy your product. There is one other way to implement this strategy that does not involve actually selling the product. Instead, it could be a story that creates the right environment for your product or educates the reader for why your products are necessary or expedient. This is particularly effective for items that may be so novel that people don't know why they would buy them. There is no conditioning in place or market buzz that has been associated with the item, and so they're left not understanding the value of the product at all. That's when you need a story about your particular industry and how these products were developed to fulfill a particular need. You want to be clear that people understand the results they will get in their lives by paying attention to this particular issue, and this sets the environment for making a sales call at the end. For example, When organic products first came out, only people who were into health foods understood the reason for buying higher-priced produce or hormone-free meats. It just didn't have a mass appeal, and the consumer wasn't really aware that there were really any difference between meat at the local supermarket and meat that was brought up hormone-free and cost much more. Why would you pay that much more for something that you don't understand or value? So, it took a while for people to realize that our air and water systems are polluted and that farms use all kinds of chemicals as fertilizers on produce that end up in the vegetables and fruits. So, if you happen to be selling some organic product online, you might have a story on the environmental stresses that cause your products to be necessary for a healthy diet. Once you declare the proper environment and frame the value of your product or service, it becomes much more intriguing and interesting to your potential buyer. So, what might not have been something they saw any value in becomes very important to try so that they too can see the results in their life. So, while a story is typically something that can relate the potential buyer to a common experience that will help them bond, there are other times when you have to set the stage first before they get why it is a common experience. It may be they have never tried anything organic in their lives, so you had to introduce that concept to them from some other area that is familiar to them, our polluted environment. The timing. Telling a story that is brief can be done at the very beginning of a sales encounter. It can be done on the home page, in your About Me pages, or when you are introducing a new product. Once you've established a nice bond, you can even get into longer stories on the sales page to establish the benefits of your product, especially if it is something new that needs to have the stage set for it to make a dramatic appearance. You can even use a joke of the day type of device to help engage your readers and have it introduce your industry, if not your product. Sort of like the jokes that all relate to screwing in a light bulb. If you happen to be selling light bulbs, this would make an excellent way to establish rapport and humor on your site and eventually sell light bulbs. Some people like stories so much that they will email them to other people. You can have an email this story to your friend feature that is a great way to have people visiting do your marketing for you. In the same way as a YouTube video that goes viral will work marketing magic for you, and you don't have to go and post it to too many places. Other people will start doing it for you. Most stories will do nothing more than introduce the product or establish rapport. Those are the ones you use on other sites and throughout the internet to establish a presence online. Reserve the longer, deeper stories for your website where people can become involved in an area that has calls to action to buy your products. Chapter 9. Flaunt your expertise. People love to deal with experts. Experts can be trusted. Experts are in the know. And when we deal with experts, we feel smart for being able to spot them. So, when you want people to automatically give you more credibility and authority to encourage them to do business with you more, flaunt your expertise. That's right, no one else is going to do it for you, and this is something that is not only all right on the internet, but it is easily done. It's called self-promotion, and the internet makes it a very easy thing to do online. If you want people to recognize you for your expertise, you will want to concentrate on your area of expertise and then show off what you know. It's that simple. The strategy. There is a fine line between coming off as an expert and being a pretentious imposter or know-it-all. If you really don't know what you're talking about, that is going to come across sooner or later. So, you do want to know your market niche extremely well. You should do enough research so that you can even anticipate your customers' concerns and have solutions ready for them when they come up. You will want to be the person who not only knows your market, but the desires of your customers too. Then, you will want to visit places that can allow you to show off that knowledge without seeming pretentious or an attention hog. Least of all, you don't want to visit just to spam a group with your expertise when it's not even related to the discussion. You should pick the venues that you will be using to show off your expertise very carefully. They should include forums, discussion groups, blogs, your website, and sales page that allow you to add information that gathers attention and solves a problem without it appearing to be a direct solicitation. This means that you will need to spend some time creating your online image as the experts in residence. You will have to write articles, author books, write in other people's blogs, do guest posts, frequent discussion groups, enter topics into forums, and more. It's not easy being an expert, but it's well worth it. Some people build their image as an expert by collecting titles or degrees. That's perfectly legitimate. If you have a PhD, flaunt it. Put the initials after your name in all your email correspondence and on your website, too. There's nothing wrong with having extra initials after your name, and you'd be surprised the air of credibility and authority that this gives you. Use any advantage you have to express your authority on a subject. If you are selling clothing, for instance, you don't want images on your website that show people dressed in frumpy attire. If you are trying to sell office supplies, you don't want people on the site photographed in shorts and sandals. This type of subtle visual statement leads people to question your expertise, not because you yourself are portraying less professionally, but because you don't associate with people who have authority. People with power generally congregate with other people with power. If you show up with less than ideal business partners or affiliates, your expertise and authority are questioned, not to mention your judgment. The psychology. Since we were children, we have been taught to respect authority. We idolize our parents for knowing more than we did, and we trusted them to guide us to make the right decisions in life. Later, in school, we are put into an educational system that grades us based on our knowledge of the course material, with the teachers being the ultimate symbol of someone with the most expertise on a subject. They were the ones we were supposed to respect and listen to. After we started work, the same rules apply. Those people who know the system or the game of politics, the experts in the company who deal with the other experts, are the ones that demand our respect and obedience. Through them, we gain our promotions and get the good things in life. This habit of obedience to authority and recognition of experts as the final say in life never really goes away. It's been impressed upon us since early childhood, and in many cases, a trusted expert becomes the reflection of a trusted parent. We are more inclined to listen to these experts, even feeling a sense of gratitude that there is someone to listen to who can guide us in the proper choices to make. It makes our lives easier, and it becomes a subconscious desire to follow authority just as we've been programmed to do. It is so ingrained that some people never question an expert, even if it appears they may not be all that trustworthy. They are so accustomed to having someone to tell them what to do that they actually can feel very reassured just by having someone willing to take up the mantle of authority for them. Since marketers know that showing your expertise is a great way to make a sale, there is plenty of competition from people trying to sell themselves as experts. It's up to you to differentiate your own knowledge, image, and authority from everyone else so that people are more likely to come to you than the next guy. The implementation. To become an expert on the web, it's easy. All you have to do is make sure people know your qualifications and be careful to always project the image of an expert everywhere you go. Unlike a job interview that requires someone who you worked with to offer a reference, you can be your own reference on the web. For that, you want to take the time to develop this strategy everywhere, not just for yourself, but your company image too. As we mentioned earlier, you will want to mine your personal experience and express that whenever appropriate. If you have a master's or PhD, be sure to use those initials after your name when you email, when you add a post to a discussion group or forum, or even when you comment on a blog. It's a very simple matter, and it adds loads of authority to your current image. When people see those initials, they will be triggered to defer to you automatically. So be sure to put all initials that represent some degree of expertise next to your name. If you are doing this for your website or business image, you want to capture your expertise in a single phrase that represents why people should do business with you. This can be voted best value for the money by Consumer Magazine. Of course, Only add that if it's true. You don't want to be caught echoing some claim that later points out that you clearly don't have any expertise and are a liar to boot. So be genuine, but also be sure to take pride in your accomplishments. If you don't have any recognition from others that you can point to, you can still raise the audience's awareness of what makes your business special. Maybe you are the biggest distributor on the East Coast for your particular item. Maybe you make the most unique ukuleles in Hawaii. Maybe you are the oldest company on record for the business. Believe it or not, people hold a great deal of respect for businesses that can say they've been around for decades. Imagine if you could say that about your online business, where most people have a habit of disappearing overnight. It creates the image of tremendous stability and also expertise in your area of commerce. If you still can't think of anything, start by telling your audience why you think your business or staff is special. Maybe you think you have the best group of positive thinkers on staff who find ways to make everyone's day brighter. Maybe you sell environmentally friendly products, and for each sale you donate to a green cause. This can make people think that you know about the issues important to them and they can trust you as an expert because you walk the walk. So, ask yourself a few questions to help you establish what makes you and your business experts on your market niche. What credentials do I have to prove our expertise? Are my workers specially trained or gifted? How many years have you been in business? What is your satisfaction rating for customers? What separates your knowledge from your competitors? What image should you be portraying to be considered an expert? Am I or my company certified by any outside agencies? Who else thinks you or your business is experts in your market niche? What do I know that no one else knows? Once you have the answers to those questions, you can write up articles and feed them to article directories. At the end, in your author's bio box, you can add information on who you are and your status as an expert. Either submit the articles to directories yourselves or hire a company to do it for you. These article directories will show up in search engines when someone searches for your company name or your own name. If you have multiple different articles out there under different directories, the search results on a search engine will bring up so many results that you look like an instant expert. That's one way to get your name out there as an expert fairly quickly. Another way is to visit forums and discussion groups that are within your target niche. Add to the discussions. When you can, show off your knowledge and increase your exposure online. If you keep coming back and doing this, at least that audience will begin to equate your name or your company's name as experts in a particular field, and that also will show up in search results from a search engine. Writing a book and putting it up on Amazon or other large distributors will also qualify you as an expert. It used to be that you had to find a publisher to publish your book to really be perceived a formally approved expert. That's not the case anymore. Anyone can self-publish a book and then submit it to online retailers for sale. You can even do an ebook format and offer it for free in various places and build your reputation that way too. Just make sure your books contain references to your website, your products, and your own credentials. Finally, you can ask to do guest posts to other people's websites or solicit testimonials for your own website and products. Guest posts on big blogs are particularly effective because it builds traffic as well as allows you to target your particular niche and convert it to sales. And major bloggers are always looking for guest posters from noted experts so that they can take a break every now and then from posting. If you are on Facebook, the number and quality of friends and social network that you build can add to your reputation as an expert. If you have a network of 300 people who are all big names in your industry, that automatically qualifies you as a big name too. It's authority and expertise solely by association. The timing. The time to self-promote is always. It can't be said enough. You might get tired of constantly reiterating the same catchphrases that note your expertise, but you don't know what new prospects are coming in that will need that reassurance. You want to do it when you are at other people's sites, when you are not selling but rather building a marketing presence online, and when you are selling too. Almost every interaction you have should echo your expertise so as to trigger that deep-seated desire to obey the call to action later. You don't want to come off as demanding, but simply showing you know your stuff and that they can have a quiet confidence in your history, knowledge, or products can be a great way to trigger the desire to buy. Chapter 10. Prove the product's true worth. In online marketing, you want to get rid of any fears the buyer may have over purchasing your products or services. People have a big fear of being taken advantage of or buying something that later makes them feel like a fool for being duped into the purchase. There are other people who are always looking for a good deal and demand that they get a high return on their financial investment no matter what they are buying. Since you are dealing with consumers who are internet savvy, you know that they will be able to compare your products or services easily, simply by browsing other companies online or doing a quick search through Google. So, you will have to beat them to that and provide whatever comparisons they need to prove your product's true worth. It's far better for you to do it and limit and frame the results of your research to make your product appear favorably than it is for them to do it and figure out that there is at least one product out there that is a better deal for them or has some feature they like better. This is particularly important if your product has no brand name. Maybe you are selling your own line of products and competing against much better known brands. If you cannot prove your product's true worth in a relatively short amount of time, there's no reason for a sales prospect to even consider buying your product. The fear of being taken will override the possibility of getting a good deal. So again, you have to make sure they know they are getting just as good a value as the name brands you are competing against, or maybe even a better value. The strategy. When you are targeting value as your main selling point, you want to be able to educate your potential buyer not just about your products, but about the overall market offerings too. So, that means you have to do a little more research than just being aware of your own value as compared to other products in your own inventory. Instead, you want to be aware of the product's value when compared to the rest of the market that the sales prospect will eventually want to view. There are two factors involved here: quality versus price. Price is often not the determining factor for buying a product, unless that product is being compared to the same product somewhere else for a lower price. So, if you have a top-selling product available in your inventory, price will determine how good a value someone perceives it to be. Now, however, if you are working with a range of products and not a specific brand, then you want to concentrate on quality more than price. The more features, the higher the quality than the competition, and the product becomes a better value, regardless of the price. This may seem odd, but that's because the actual intrinsic value of the product is more when compared to the rest of the other products on the market. The psychology. When people see you comparing your own products and are educated about the product's intrinsic value, they equate a better value with a lower price, even if your price is actually much higher than your competition. In other words, it's like a unit price at the grocery store. When people go to compare two different cans of peaches at the same store, they look at all the canned peaches and decide which they want to buy. If they are focused solely on price, they will look for the generic brands and not even bother looking at the different types of peach syrups or even the weight by can. Instead, they will gravitate to cheaper brands because that's what they're looking for to start: a deal on the price. Value is not a consideration until after that, when they will look at the unit price for that brand to determine which can actually is the better deal by weight. That's when price is a consideration for value only. However, most people don't buy items this way. They want to go and shop and come home with something they are proud of and feel they got a great deal on too. For that, they would be the buyer that goes to the grocery store and looks at all the canned peaches. They look at the labels and they admire the different ways the peaches are sliced or diced. They look at the types of syrup, light or heavy. They look to see if there are any special peaches for some reason. So, What they are comparing is the value based on the characteristics and features of each brand. Then, when they find a couple of brands they like, they start to look at unit prices. In their mind, the fact that the value is so much higher in one brand than another automatically reduces the expense of them, and that's the first priority. After that, price may be a consideration, but let's face it, they will be higher than the generic prices. It's just that the cheaper peaches are simply not worth their money in their perception. So, when you are going to show your product's intrinsic value, it's important to highlight the features that make it special. If you are comparing it to name brands, you have to show why your product is a better value, not based solely on price, but on the features that it offers or the quality of the product. Otherwise, very few people are willing to spend their money on cheap products just to save a few bucks. They know that after a bit of time, the cheap products break and they will just have to go out and get a new product much more quickly. The implementation. This is probably the most complicated strategy to implement. It requires you to take the time to educate your sales prospect in a way that they find informative and enlightening instead of boring. You can do this quickly with a table of comparison with check marks for features, and that tool works very well here. However, what happens when you have features that your customer won't even understand? That's truly the case when you are dealing with technical equipment and people really don't know whether one processor is really better than another. That's when you also have to educate them on why they want that feature too. That's why you will want to be a little more descriptive here than normal. It can be a bit of a drain for people coming to your site to find a long list of features, but it will be necessary to educate the buyer. You can have the short summary in a table and then a bulleted list underneath to indicate what each feature is all about. That way, when someone comes to your website who is knowledgeable on your products, they won't bother to read the bulleted list. The table of comparison is sufficient. Those that don't have the same background will read the list and be impressed that you took the time to educate them on the features and why they are important to them. It shows that you care enough to make them informed customers. Another way you can implement this strategy is to have a short story that talks about why the features on your product are a good value. Maybe you are selling purses and your purses are leather and not synthetic. Maybe they have features like a cell phone compartment, an accompanying wallet that matches, and the potential to add your personalized monogram too. When you compare your purse to other purses, you will want to show that the reason these things are important is because they serve a function. They help you to express your identity, and they are durable, valuable, or aesthetically pleasing, even more so than your competitors' purses. You can even bring up the product's price and compare that to show that even though your product costs more, they're a better value. Or you can show that your products cost less and deliver the same or better value. People still want to know that they are saving money, whether it is through quality or price value. One way to help you get higher sales is to offer the cheaper product first. The way this works is that people will be so excited by the low price on the cheaper product that when you bring out the higher priced version of that product, they will transfer their excitement to the new product and equate it as a better value. Most of the time, when they hear about all the additional features they get for just X amount of dollars more, they will jump at the chance of getting an even bigger value than they thought they were getting in the cheaper version. The strategy of offering several versions works well when you are comparing items too. You don't want to compare apples to oranges, so several different versions of the same product in your inventory greatly increase your potential for making a sale. After all, you are giving the customer a choice. It just so happens the choice is still going to mean a sale for you. So it doesn't matter how you compare them or what features they have. The fact that they are able to figure out for themselves whether it really is price or intrinsic value that will motivate them to buy helps you to make a sale. This strategy can be turned on its head to still offer a sales opportunity, particularly if you are selling memberships or fundraising for an online charity. In that case, you would not offer the cheapest alternative first. You would show them the most expensive option first. When people balk at that, you would offer them the cheaper alternative. The reason for that is that they are not so much comparing products but services or donations. When they buy, they're not going to get anything placed in their hands unless, of course, you make that an option for the higher priced membership. If you are selling packages like trips to other countries that include hotel, airfare, and sightseeing, you should start with the highest priced package first. Packages include many different benefits and will automatically be perceived to have a higher value than a single item. So, you don't want to start with the cheaper package in this instance. Then, you can offer the cheaper products as an alternative if the higher priced package is rejected. So, when you are considering implementing this strategy, think about the order you want to present your products online. Do you want to highlight the higher priced item first and then offer the lower one, or vice versa? You could try it both ways and then see when you make more sales. That's the answer to your problem then. But be aware that the order of product presentation will influence people on subconscious levels in the area of proving your product's value. The timing. This strategy can be done when people are browsing your product inventories. When they search your site for a particular product, make sure the other products in that inventory show up too. Depending on what they are looking for, you can manipulate the order of display to influence them to perceive a higher value. If you are competing against brand names and using your own generic products, be sure to include that information on your sales page so people know your products are worth it. If you are writing copy ads that are going in printed material, you can compare your products quickly and then put a link to a site where you sell the product. You can also educate your customer on getting a better value just before they check out. It's like when you go to a fast food place and you order a single item. That's the time when you're told that if you buy a combo package, you get a better value. And most people then buy the combo, whether they actually were that hungry or not. The same can be done online by saying on the checkout, "Did you know that for X amount more, you could get such and such?" If you have that placed as a standard programming in your website, then it will come up and alert the customer that there is a potential for a better value deal and usually bigger bucks for you. Conclusion. As you can see from these 10 strategies, there are ways to influence a customer who is visiting your site to cause them to buy your products. However, you have to understand your audience, your product benefits, and the correct timing as to when to try each strategy. Once you start to implement some of these strategies on your site, you will see that some work better than others on particular products or at different times. If you pay attention to when you go shopping, you can see instances of each of those strategies at work in your own buying behavior. And many retailers do train their staff to trigger buying behavior by evaluating the consumer's needs and choosing to interact at a particular time with particular phrases that trigger the subconscious to buy. It's really not magic, but it can seem to be at times. People go about their days mostly unconscious of their own motivations, and in sales, this can be a big advantage. They may all come from different backgrounds, but still some behaviors like respect for authority, the desire to play with things, and the desire to bond through stories have their start in childhood programming. These daily habits become so powerful that as adults, we don't even think about why we respect experts, what makes something more fascinating than something else, and why everyone loves a good joke. Yes, that is all part and parcel of being human. Once you begin to understand your own triggers and why you do certain things, it becomes easier to predict what will trigger other people to close a deal or not. They are no different from you, and they will follow their better instincts too. So, learn the psychology, seek to understand the dynamics of human behavior, and then try to find ways to influence people to increase your sales. That's how you turn a visitor on your site into a customer and build lifelong relationships. As you get the hang of using all the tools online available to create that hypnotic spell, you will find it easy to get from forums to blogs to sales pages and maybe even into third-party vendors like eBay. You will build the confidence you need that you know what works and when and what's the appropriate time to use one strategy over another to make a sale. You will have learned that it isn't difficult to engage people online. It just takes a bit more skill since you are not face-to-face with your potential buyers. But once you have those skills, they can all be done over the internet to help you gather customers and sales from all over the globe.